I always dreamed of owning a house with character, a place with a history, where each room told a story. So when my wife Mary and I found the old Victorian house on Pinewood Lane, we knew it was the one. It had everything we wanted: tall ceilings, intricate woodwork, and a sprawling backyard for the kids. It was a bit run down, but that didn't bother us. We saw potential, and we were willing to put in the work to make it our own. We moved in during the summer, right after the kids, Tommy, who was 8, and Emily, who was 6, finished school. They were excited to explore the new house, and I have to admit, I was too. The first few days were spent unpacking and getting settled, and everything seemed perfect. But then, little things started to happen, things I couldn't quite explain. It began with small items going missing. Mary's hairbrush vanished from the bathroom one morning, and we found it in the kitchen drawer. We laughed it off, blaming it on the chaos of moving. But then Tommy's favorite action figure disappeared, only to turn up days later in the attic, a place he swore he hadn't been. Emily's coloring book went missing, and we found it outside near the garden shed. It was odd, but we chalked it up to the kids playing and forgetting where they'd left things. But the strangeness didn't stop. Doors would be open when they should have been closed, and we'd hear faint creaking sounds at night, as if someone were walking down the hallway. Mary and I joked about the house being haunted, but there was an undercurrent of unease. The kids started having trouble sleeping, claiming they heard whispering in the walls, like a distant conversation they couldn't quite make out. One night, after putting the kids to bed, Mary and I were watching TV in the living room when we heard a loud thud from upstairs. It sounded like something heavy had fallen, followed by a faint scraping noise. I rushed up the stairs, expecting to find one of the kids out of bed, but the hallway was empty. I checked their rooms, but they were both fast asleep, their nightlights casting a soft glow across their sleeping faces. The following morning, Tommy came downstairs with a look of concern. "Dad, I heard someone in my room last night," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They were whispering, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. I told him it was probably just a dream, but he shook his head. "No, it wasn't a dream. I saw someone, but they disappeared when I turned on the light." Emily joined in, her eyes wide with fear. "I heard it too," she said. "Someone was in my room, but I couldn't see them. It was like they were hiding." Mary and I exchanged worried glances. It was one thing to misplace items or hear creaking floorboards, but the idea that someone might be in the house was unsettling. We checked all the doors and windows, making sure everything was locked. We found no signs of forced entry. It didn't make sense, but we couldn't ignore the kids' fear. As time went on, the nights grew more unsettling. The whispering in the walls became more frequent, and sometimes we heard faint footsteps on the stairs. Mary swore she saw a shadow move across the hallway one night, but when we turned on the lights, there was nothing there. The kids started sleeping with their doors closed and locked, and they asked to keep a flashlight by their beds. One night, I was in the kitchen getting a glass of water when I heard a noise from the basement. It was a low, rhythmic tapping, like someone was knocking on the pipes. I grabbed a flashlight and carefully opened the basement door. The steps creaked as I descended into the darkness, the beam of the flashlight casting eerie shadows on the stone walls. The tapping grew louder, like it was coming from deep within the earth. I followed the sound to the far corner of the basement, where an old furnace stood. The knocking stopped as I approached, and the air grew cold, like a draft had slipped in from somewhere. I checked the furnace and the surrounding area, but there was no sign of anything unusual. No leaks, no broken pipes, just an unsettling chill that seemed to cling to the walls. Mary and I discussed calling a professional, someone who could check the house for structural issues or other potential explanations. But the strangeness persisted. The whispering grew louder, the footsteps more frequent, and the shadows more pronounced. It was as if the house itself had come alive, each room hiding its own secrets. One night, a scream shattered the silence. It was Emily, her voice filled with terror. Mary and I raced up the stairs, nearly colliding with each other as we reached her room. She was sitting on her bed, tears streaming down her cheeks, clutching her flashlight with white-knuckled hands. "I saw them, Dad!" she cried, pointing to the corner of her room. "They were standing right there, but they disappeared!" I turned on the lights and checked the entire room, but there was no one there. The closet was empty, and the windows were securely locked. Emily was inconsolable, insisting that someone had been in her room. Tommy joined us, his eyes filled with fear, and he confirmed what Emily had said. He'd heard someone moving in his sister's room and saw a shadow pass by his door. Mary and I decided that we needed to leave the house for a while, just to get some distance and clear our heads. We packed up the kids and drove to my parents' place a few towns over. It was a relief to be away from Pinewood Lane, but the mystery of the house lingered in our minds. We couldn't explain what was happening, and the fear that someone, or something, was lurking in the shadows haunted us. Eventually, we returned to the house, hoping that the break would help us feel more at ease. But the strangeness never truly left. The whispering continued, the footsteps still echoed in the hallways, and the shadows seemed to move with a will of their own. We made plans to sell the house and find somewhere else to live, somewhere that didn't carry the weight of unseen eyes and unexplained noises. To this day, I don't know what was happening in that house. I don't know if it was haunted or if there was something else at play, something beyond our understanding. All I know is that the house on Pinewood Lane was a place of mystery, a place where the walls seemed to whisper and the shadows seemed to watch. And I know that it's a place I never want to visit again.